The discovery. The vastness of space was silent, endless, and empty. But on this day, it held a secret waiting to be uncovered. Captain Dorian stood at the bridge of his salvage ship, Starborn, staring at the massive wreck floating in the darkness. His crew had seen plenty of broken ships before, old human warships, forgotten space stations, even the ruins of alien cargo haulers. But this was different. The ship in front of them was gigantic, nearly 3 times the size of Earth's largest battleship. Its surface was covered in scars, burnt metal, and deep cracks, signs of a battle long ago. The design was nothing like any human ship, and the strange alien symbols along its hull glowed faintly, as if whispering an old, forgotten story. "This thing is ancient," muttered Lieutenant Kane, his second in command. "And yet, it's still intact. How?" Dorian didn't have an answer. Most wrecks in deep space were stripped clean, scavenged by others, or destroyed completely. But this one had been left behind, untouched, as if the universe itself was afraid of it. "We need a full scan," Dorian ordered. "See if there's anything useful inside." The ship's AI, ETKO, responded in its calm mechanical voice. "Scanning. Structural integrity is compromised, but internal systems show traces of power. Energy signature detected deep inside." The crew exchanged glances. A ship this old shouldn't have any energy left. Dorian took a deep breath. "Prepare the boarding team. A ghost ship awakens." The air inside the alien ship was stale, thick with dust and time. Their boots echoed against the cold metal floor as they moved carefully through the dark, empty corridors. "This place gives me the creeps," whispered Technician Riley, shining his flashlight over the walls. Strange markings ran along the sides, symbols that pulsed faintly as if they could feel the human's presence. Dorian stopped at a large control panel, its surface covered in dust. Slowly, he wiped it clean, revealing more alien symbols. As he reached out, the panel suddenly lit up. The ship came alive. Lights flickered. Screens flashed strange, unreadable data. A deep mechanical hum filled the ship as ancient systems activated for the first time in centuries. "Captain." Kane's voice was tense. "I think we just woke something up." Before Dorian could respond, a hollow voice echoed through the ship. It was deep, distorted, and filled with something not quite human. "Warning. Unknown life forms, DETCTED. This vessel is not SAF. Leave IMNETIA, HELY." The crew froze. Riley's hands tightened on his scanner. Did that thing just tell us to leave? Dorian exhaled slowly. "Yeah, but we're not going anywhere." Secrets in the dark. Ignoring the warning, the team moved deeper into the ship, following the faint energy signature. They reached a large chamber where the air felt heavier. In the center stood a massive console, its screens flickering weakly. Dorian approached carefully, brushing off more dust. The moment his fingers touched the controls, the screens flashed to life. A hologram appeared, a recording, old and glitching. The figure was an alien, its face thin and elongated, eyes filled with something humans could only describe as fear. The message began. "We should have destroyed this ship when we had the chance. We thought we could control it. But we were wrong. The enemy is coming. Run." The hologram fizzled out, leaving behind an eerie silence. Riley swallowed hard. Captain. I don't think we should be here." Dorian stared at the flickering screens, his mind racing. The aliens had abandoned this ship, not because it was damaged, but because they were afraid of it. But afraid of what? Then, without warning, the ship shook violently. "Captain," Kane shouted. "Something just activated in the lower decks." Dorian's heart pounded. The ship was waking up, and whatever secrets it held, they weren't meant to be found. The awakening. The alien ship rumbled beneath their feet. Metal groaned, and deep within its structure, Something stirred. Something old. Something waiting. Dorian gritted his teeth. We need answers. Fast. Kane scanned the consoles. Captain, energy readings are increasing. This ship isn't just waking up. It's rebooting itself. ECO, their AI, chimed in. Unidentified systems activating. Origin, unknown. Risk level, undetermined. Dorian tightened his grip on his weapon. Stay alert. If something moves, we shoot first. Ask questions later. A power unlike any other. They pushed deeper, their flashlights cutting through the dim corridors. The further they went, the more alive the ship felt. Lights flickered, screens flashed alien symbols, and the air carried a strange, pulsing hum. Suddenly, Riley's scanner spiked. Whoa, Captain, I'm picking up something big. Real big, just ahead. The team reached a colossal chamber, unlike anything they'd seen before. Towering machinery lined the walls, each pulsating with a deep blue glow. And at the very center, a core, the size of a small house, levitated above the floor, swirling with raw, untamed energy. Lightning-like arcs crackled across its surface, illuminating the chamber in ghostly blue flashes. This thing, Kane whispered, it's not a reactor. It's a living power source. Hisiko's voice cut through the silence. Analyzing. Energy signature is unlike any known technology. Power output, beyond human capacity. This ship was never meant for war. It was meant for something far greater. Dorian frowned. Then why was it abandoned? A low, mechanical voice echoed around them. Because they could not control it. Not alone. The team spun around, weapons raised. The voice hadn't come from their comms. It came from the walls. Shapes moved in the darkness. Silhouettes emerged, shifting and fluid, as if made from pure energy. They weren't solid, yet they weren't ghosts either. Their glowing blue eyes locked onto the humans. Intruders detected. Riley took a step back. Captain, I think we just met the ship's previous crew. But Dorian had seen something else, something far worse. Beyond the glowing figures, across the chamber, an enormous metal pod lay embedded in the floor. Its surface was cracked and broken, but something inside pulsed faintly, waiting. A prison. And it was starting to open. The enemy within. Isiko's voice rang out, sharp and urgent. Warning. An unknown entity is emerging from containment. High-risk threat detected. The glowing figures turned to the pod, their ethereal forms flickering with panic. It must not wake. But it was too late. The ancient lock snapped open, releasing a deep, inhuman growl. The air shuddered. A massive hand, covered in jagged black armor, gripped the edge of the pod. Then it rose. The thing inside wasn't just alive, it was aware. And it wasn't human. Dorian's heart pounded. Whatever the aliens had feared was right in front of them. The unchained terror. The chamber shook as the monstrous figure emerged from its ancient prison. Metal groaned under its weight, and a wave of cold, suffocating energy pulsed outward, making the lights flicker violently. Dorian's instincts screamed at him to run. The creature stood 9 feet tall, its body wrapped in jagged black armor that looked like it had fused with its very flesh. Glowing red eyes locked onto them, filled with something primal, something that had been waiting. Hunger, rage, freedom. Then it spoke. At last, fresh prey. A battle against the unknown. Fire, Dorian shouted. Gunfire roared, their weapons blazing in the dim chamber. Bullets ripped through the air, but when they hit the creature, they melted on impact. Kane cursed. That armor's absorbing everything. The monster lunged, faster than anything its size should be. It grabbed a nearby console and ripped it from the floor, hurling it toward them. Boom! The impact sent them flying. Dust and debris filled the air. Riley groaned, struggling to get up. That thing's a damn tank. The glowing figures, the ancient crew, flickered around them, their voices filled with urgency. You cannot kill it. You must contain it. Dorian spat blood, gripping his rifle. Then tell us how before we're all dead. A desperate gamble. Isisho's voice crackled through their comms. Analyzing enemy structure. Weakness detected. The entity's power is directly linked to the ship's core. Sever the connection, and it will weaken. Dorian's mind raced. The energy core. If this ship had once contained this thing, then it had to have a way to do it again. Riley, Kane. We hit the core. Now. Kane hesitated. Captain, if we damage that thing, we could shut down the whole ship. Better that than letting this thing loose on the universe. The creature roared, charging toward them, its claws slicing through the floor like butter. They had seconds. Dorian turned to Riley. EMP charge. How fast can you set it? She yanked a device from her belt. 30 seconds. Make it 10. She didn't argue. Her hands moved fast, setting the charge against the core's control panel. Kane kept firing, trying to distract the monster. It worked, barely. The creature leaped, ready to strike. Now. Riley slammed the detonator, the shockwave. A blinding pulse of energy erupted through the chamber. The core flared, sending out waves of blue-white electricity. The walls hummed, and suddenly, the creature screamed. It collapsed, its body writhing as its own power turned against it. Its armor cracked, glowing lines splintering across its form. The ancient crew watched silently, their ghostly faces unreadable. The monster thrashed one last time, then fell still. For a moment, only the sound of their own breathing filled the air. Then ECHO's voice came through, cold and precise. Containment successful. Enemy neutralized. Ship systems stabilizing. Dorian exhaled slowly. His hands were still shaking. Kane looked at the fallen creature. What the hell was that thing? One of the ancient figures turned to them. The reason our species no longer exists. A new purpose. The realization hit Dorian like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a ship. It was a tomb. A prison built to hold something so dangerous that an entire civilization had chosen to die rather than let it escape. And now, the ship belonged to humanity. He turned to his crew, his voice firm. We're not abandoning this ship. We rebuild it. We control it. And if this thing ever wakes up again, his eyes darkened. We make sure it never gets another chance. The awakening of Titans. The air inside the ancient ship was thick with silence, a silence that felt more alive than comforting. The crew stood motionless, staring at the fallen beast, its massive frame still crackling with dying energy from the containment shock. Dorian wiped sweat from his brow. That was too close. Riley inspected the flickering screens. The power core is stable, but something else is happening. Kane frowned. To find something else. Isiko's voice interrupted, cold and precise. Unsealed containment has triggered additional failsafe protocols. Stand by. Then, without warning, the entire ship trembled. Lights flashed across the alien walls, intricate symbols igniting one by one, forming patterns that pulsed with an eerie, calculating intelligence. Dorian's gut tightened. What the hell did we just activate? A deep mechanical rumble echoed through the ship, the kind of sound that only came from something massive waking up. And then, the ship moved. The ship was never just a ship. The floor beneath them lurched, sending the crew stumbling. The once dead consoles now glowed, displaying streams of foreign data at a rapid pace. Isiko's voice returned, sounding almost uncertain. Correction. This vessel is not a standard warship. It is an adaptive biomechanical entity. The core's reactivation has triggered its transformation. Kane braced himself against a railing. Transformation into what? The answer came in the form of movement. Outside, the ship's hull began shifting, its exterior plating shredding apart and rebuilding itself at an unnatural speed. Jagged edges smoothed out into sleek, predatory armor, weapon systems emerging where there had been nothing but empty plating moments before. Riley's voice was breathless. It's evolving. Dorian's heart pounded. They hadn't just salvaged a broken alien ship. They had just woken up a sleeping Titan. The warning from the dead. The ancient, ghostly figures of the former crew flickered back into view. Their glowing eyes locked onto Dorian, their expressions filled with something between fear and urgency. One of them stepped forward. "You must listen carefully, human." Dorian squared his shoulders. "We're listening." This vessel was never meant to be used again. Riley exchanged glances with Kane. "Why?" The figure's eyes darkened. "Because the moment it moves, others will know." Dorian felt his blood run cold. Others? The spirits did not answer immediately. Instead, the ship's main display flared to life, projecting a holographic star map. Red dots swarmed across it, dozens, then hundreds. Then thousands. HFY translated the data. Multiple hostile signatures detected. Estimated time of arrival: less than 5 hours. Kane swore under his breath. "Oh, that's just great. We took their toy, and now the owners are coming back." The ghostly figure's voice was grave. "No, not the owners." Dorian's pulse quickened. "Then who?" The figure's form glitched, but its final words sent a chill down his spine. "The ones who destroyed them. A race against time." Dorian spun toward his crew. "We don't have 5 hours to sit around. We either control this ship or we die on it." Riley's fingers flew over the alien console, adapting HFY's interface to what little they understood. "I can establish partial control, but this thing isn't built like anything we've seen." Kane loaded his weapon. "Tell me we got some guns on this beast." HFY processed the data. Affirmative. Newly unlocked weapons systems include gravitational disruptors, plasma artillery, and a prototype antimatter lance. Kane grinned. "Oh, I like those words." Dorian's mind worked fast. If this ship had been built as a prison, then its weapons weren't meant to win wars. They were meant to annihilate threats before they could spread. Which meant they had a fighting chance. Dorian stepped toward the main control panel, his voice steady. "Riley, get us operational. Kane, prep defenses. If war is coming to us, then we give them a fight they'll never forget." The warship's first battle. The ship hummed with power, its new form still stabilizing. Panels realigned, weapons extended from hidden compartments, and energy pulsed through its reinforced frame. It was no longer a relic of a forgotten war. It was a weapon reborn. Dorian gripped the command console, watching the red enemy signatures approaching fast on the holographic map. Status. Riley's fingers danced across the alien interface. Shields are online. Weapons are functional, I think. But this thing wasn't built for conventional battles. Kane locked in his combat harness, staring at the growing number of incoming hostiles. Good. Neither were we. The ship's AI, ETQ, interrupted. Multiple enemy vessels entering attack formation. Estimated time to engagement: 4 minutes. Dorian exhaled slowly. Then let's give them hell. First strike. The enemy ships, sleek, predatory, and bristling with advanced weaponry, burst out of hyperspace in tight formation, their movements too precise for an uncoordinated attack. "They're not pirates," Riley muttered. "These are warships." The largest enemy vessel, a hulking dreadnought, broadcast a message in an unknown language. ECHO translated instantly. "Surrender the vessel immediately. You are in possession of a classified war asset." Dorian smirked. "Yeah. Come and take it." The enemy fleet didn't hesitate. Energy lances and plasma bursts tore through space, closing in on their position at terrifying speed. "Shields up," Dorian shouted. The warship's new armor glowed, absorbing the first devastating wave of fire. The ship shuddered, but it didn't falter. Kane's eyes gleamed. "Our turn." Dorian nodded. Ishisho, fire at will. The ship responded like a beast unchained. A gravitational disruptor fired first. An invisible wave of compressed spacetime slammed into the lead enemy ships, sending them spiraling out of control. Next came the plasma artillery, lancing through the void with blinding fury, ripping through hulls like paper. One ship detonated instantly. Another careened into its ally, both vanishing in a silent explosion of metal and fire. But the enemy was relentless. More ships flanked them, unleashing precision strikes, aiming for critical systems. Riley cursed. Shields dropping fast. We can't take another full hit like that. Dorian clenched his jaw. Then we don't let them fire. Unleashing the Titan's wrath. The ship shifted again. ETO's calculations were rewriting battlefield tactics in real time, adapting the ship's capabilities to its new pilots. Activating antimatter lance, Ishisho announced. Warning, weapon untested. Dorian didn't hesitate. Fire. For a split second, the universe itself seemed to darken. Then, a thin beam of nothingness erupted from the warship's core. It wasn't plasma. It wasn't laser fire. It was pure annihilation. The dreadnought didn't even get a chance to evade. The beam sliced through it effortlessly, its hull imploding as reality itself rebelled against the intrusion of the weapon. The remaining pieces vanished into the void, erased from existence. Silence. Then, one by one, the enemy ships turned and fled. Kane let out a slow whistle. Okay, I love this ship. No time to celebrate. Dorian exhaled, his grip finally loosening from the console. Status. Riley checked the readings. No major damage. Shields at 28%. Core stability holding. Ishisho spoke, its tone unreadable. Enemy forces in full retreat. However, long-range scans indicate a secondary fleet mobilizing beyond this sector. Kane frowned. So they're regrouping. No, Riley said, staring at the data in disbelief. They were never the real threat. Dorian's gut twisted. Then what the hell is coming? The answer arrived as the ship's sensors detected something enormous. A shadow moved at the edge of the system, not a fleet. A single ship, larger than anything they had ever seen. Ishisho's voice dropped to a near whisper. Designation: Harbinger-class exterminator. Estimated combat capability: total planetary destruction. The crew fell silent. For all the power their new ship had gained, this might not be a battle they could win. Facing the Harbinger, the void of space seemed to tremble as the Harbinger-class exterminator emerged from the darkness. It wasn't just big, it was colossal. A warship the size of a small moon, covered in shifting black metal plating, absorbing all light around it. It moved with unnatural grace, as if gravity itself obeyed its presence. On board their own ship, the crew stood frozen. Even Kane, usually the first to joke, whispered, "What the hell is that thing?" Ishisho's synthetic voice cut through the silence. That vessel is beyond known classifications. Armament, unknown. Shields, unknown. Energy output, immeasurable. Riley's voice was tight. You're telling me we have no idea what we're up against? Ishisho hesitated, something the AI never did. Correction. We know one thing. It was built for extinction-level warfare. The message. Before anyone could react, a transmission came through. Not in a language they understood. Not in words at all. It was a pulse. A deep, resonating pressure in their minds, like an ancient presence waking from slumber. A voice followed, cold, mechanical, and absolute. Surrender the vessel, or be erased. The bridge went silent. Dorian narrowed his eyes. They're not asking. Kane shook his head. They never do. Riley pulled up scans. They're charging something. I don't recognize the energy signature, but it's pulling in power faster than anything I've seen. Ishisho confirmed their fears. Primary weapon system charging. Estimated time until full power, 3 minutes. Dorian gritted his teeth. Then we have 3 minutes to survive. The impossible plan. We can't win, Riley said. Not in a street fight. That thing could rip a planet in half. Dorian exhaled. Then we don't fight fair. Kane smirked. Now you're speaking my language. Dorian turned to ECHO. Tell me you've got something. Anything. ECHO paused. Analyzing. There is one option. But it is highly inadvisable. That's our specialty, Kane said. Lay it on us. ECHO's holo-display shifted, showing a small pulsing core at the very center of the Harbinger. This vessel's new systems include a high-intensity gravity well generator. If placed correctly, it could destabilize the Harbinger's core and cause a catastrophic implosion. Riley's eyes widened. You want us to drop a miniature black hole inside that thing? ECHO was silent for a moment. Affirmative. Dorian didn't hesitate. We do it. The final run. The ship's engines roared to life. The gravity well device, barely tested, was armed. The Harbinger, sensing their movement, unleashed a storm of plasma fire, ripping through space like an unstoppable force of nature. The warship dodged, weaved, and twisted, its newfound agility keeping them just ahead of the devastation. But not fast enough. An energy lance grazed their shields, systems flickered, consoles sparking under the strain. Shields down to 15%. Riley shouted. Hold course. Dorian commanded. The Harbinger's main cannon reached full charge. ECHO's voice rang out. Enemy firing in 10 seconds. Kane grabbed onto the harness. Then let's ruin their aim. Asterisk asterisk, the warship flipped. Asterisk asterisk twisting in an impossible gut-wrenching spiral and launched the gravity well device straight at the Harbinger's exposed core. Time slowed. The device connected. And then, a singularity was born. The Harbinger shuddered, its metal frame warping, twisting, and collapsing inward as gravity itself turned against it. Dorian's eyes widened. Get us out of here. The ship punched into hyperspace just as the Harbinger vanished, pulled into the endless abyss of its own destruction. Silence filled the bridge. Then Kane let out a laugh, breathless and exhilarated. Holy hell, that worked. Dorian sank into his seat. Remind me to never doubt ECHO again. ECHO, for once, sounded almost amused. Acknowledged. Riley exhaled. We just destroyed the most powerful warship in the universe. Dorian's gaze darkened. No. He turned to the sensors. That was just one of them. The war has just begun. The bridge was silent. The crew had just witnessed the impossible. The Harbinger, a warship beyond comprehension, torn apart by its own power. But there was no celebration, because the sensors were still screaming. More signals. Dozens. No, hundreds. Dorian gripped the armrest. Tell me that's a glitch, ECHO. ECHO's voice was grim. Negative. Multiple Harbinger-class vessels detected. They were waiting. Kane's hands tightened into fists. That wasn't their fleet. He swallowed. That was their scout. A heavy silence fell over the crew. The revelation. A new transmission came through. But this time, it wasn't a demand. It was laughter. A deep mechanical chuckle. Cold, calculating, inhuman. Then the voice spoke. Impressive. You have done what no species has accomplished before. Dorian's jaw clenched. And who the hell are you? The laughter stopped. We are the architects of the end, the builders of judgment. The Harbingers are merely our tools. Your kind has intrigued us, human. Riley's hands flew across the console. They're broadcasting across the entire sector. Every major power is hearing this. Dorian narrowed his eyes. Why announce themselves now? The voice seemed to smile. Because you have proven yourselves worthy. The test is over. Now, The extermination begins. Then, in real time, every Harbinger vessel activated their weapons at once. The stars burned. The last stand. All Paduir to shields. Riley shouted, her fingers flying over controls. ECHO responded instantly. Overcharging capacitors. Wo Ning. Hull stress critical. Kane's voice was sharp. If we sit here, we die. Dorian's mind raced. They couldn't fight. They couldn't run. Unless. His eyes locked onto something on the sensor display. A dying star. A plan formed in his mind. It was reckless. It was insane. It was their only shot. Ichicho, reroute power to engines. We're going into the star. Silence. Then Kane blinked. I'm sorry. What? Riley's face paled. Dorian, that's a controlled dive. He cut in. We go deep enough to fry their targeting systems, then ride the explosion out. ECHO processed the plan in milliseconds. Survival probability, 3.7%. Kane grinned. I've beaten worse odds. Dorian clenched his fists. Then let's do the impossible again. Riding the fire, the ship plunged into the inferno. Outside, the universe became a sea of fire, their hull screaming under the pressure. Shields flickered, temperatures redlining every system. But the Harbingers weren't prepared. Their sensors couldn't track through the sheer chaos of a collapsing star. And then, at the critical moment, the detonation began. Isiko's voice cut through the storm. Star implosion in 10, 9. Dorian slammed the throttle forward. The explosion erupted behind them, a wave of pure destruction. The ship rode the shockwave, escaping the firestorm by fractions of a second. Behind them, the blast ripped through the Harbinger fleet, consuming dozens of warships in one catastrophic wave. But not all of them. As the ship emerged, alarms blared. Isiko's voice was sharp. One Harbinger-class vessel remains intact. It is pursuing. Dorian's grip tightened. Then let's finish this. The final duel. The last Harbinger loomed ahead, its weapons charging. But this time, humanity was ready. Riley rerouted every last drop of power, weapons at full capacity. Dorian didn't hesitate. Fire every thing. The ship unleashed hell. Railguns ripped through armor. Plasma lances burned through defenses. Missiles shattered shielding. The Harbinger lurched, its once invincible form crumbling under the onslaught. And then, one final shot. A direct hit to its power core. The Harbinger detonated, breaking apart in a blinding, glorious burst of light. The crew sat in silence, breathing heavily. Then Kane let out a laugh. Raw, victorious. Holy hell, we did it. Riley exhaled. That was the last one. But Dorian wasn't so sure. He stared into the void, remembering the voice. The test is over. Now, the extermination begins. No, this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of humanity's greatest war.